process. So what you would do is you would let Taryn know that you'd like to start up a project, and she'll send you the agreement. And the last page of the agreement is actually the deployment form, and you would fill out the basic information about the project, right? And that you're going to be the overall administrator and you know all that stuff. And so once the contract gets processed, it goes to our services team. They take a look at it. They spin up a new project for you. And when you log in, what you're going to see is here's each project that you've got spun up. And each project is its own self-contained unit, so you never have to worry about permissions or information from one project bleeding over into another. Once you've spun up the project, you would go into the project team activity center here in the right hand side, and it's really, I mean, we can get up and running in a day or two typically, and you go in and you add the appropriate users, or whoever in your team is going to be responsible for that, right? You just go in. Adding a user is as simple as putting in their email address as their username, filling in their contact information, giving them a role on the project, and then just checking or unchecking the boxes as far as what activity centers you want them to have access to. And you simply hit add to project, and that person's going to be added. And then when they log in, they'll get an email notification. It'll say you've been invited to project XYZ. Click the link, set up your password, and then when they log in, they will see any projects they've been invited to. And when they expand a project like this, they're only going to see those activity centers that you've given them the ability to see.
Gotcha. So will they see all the projects you said and just be allowed to enter certain ones, or they'll only be able to see the ones they're invited to?
Only the ones that they're invited to.
Okay. And then is there a way to upload bulk team lists, or is it a one by each?
Yep. So when you first add so this was built as a project by project, or intended to be a project by project system. And so the first time that you add someone in, you do have to go through what I just showed you and put in their contact info and so on. But say you were working with me and you added me to one project, and you say, okay, Alex, I want to work with you on these two other projects. You would simply go into that initial project, click this little plus button next to my name, and you would just add me to any other projects you had spun up. And this is just a matter of saying, yep, add Alex with the same permissions to the other projects. And then if you needed to adjust my permissions on any particular project, you could go in and do that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Then I could pull whatever common subcontractors or designers were involved and tie them all in.
That's exactly correct. Yep.
And just so you guys know, Travis Miller's here with me as well.
Hey, Travis.
Taryn,
Travis.
in case you hear another voice jumping in with questions.
Yeah, not a problem. And like Taryn said, if you've got questions, by all means ask. I'm a little bit stuffed up today, so if I say something and you couldn't hear me or couldn't understand me, by all means let me know. No problem. Making sure that we got everything covered here. But that's pretty much the setup process. We've got Fridays, and I'm stuffed, blanking on the name, a workflow consultation when you set up a project. So we would go through and help you, set up, for example, with submittals and RFIs. We're going to help you set up all the types, get that register put together, figure out, what settings you want configured in terms of notifications, reminders, that type of stuff. We've got.
When you say submittal type, what do you mean?
So
walk us through a page of that, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go into the submittals activity center here, you'll see we've got a couple logs that you see by default, and then we've got all the different logs on the right-hand side that we've created for the project. These are all completely customizable. You can create. It's basically a database under the hood. And this is just an easy user interface on the top. And so you can create a log to show you any combination of data that you'd like to see. And then we also have different fields essentially in the database where you can tag a submittal or an RFI, based on trade and or category, and or type. It's just different ways, different pieces of data that you can then filter and organize by, right? So if you said, hey, I want to see all the mechanical submittals, very easy to say, yep, here's all the mechanical submittals on the project, that type of thing. So we've got a administrative sort of consultation session as part of the deployment process where we get on a phone call with you or whoever on your team is going to be managing that process, and we make sure that these are set up in the right way, that we've got the right terms in there for you. Things like, so if we just go into the module configuration section here for a second, you'll get a sense of it. How do you want the numbering to happen on your submittals, right? For the review status, what terms do you already use? Do we need to, we've got the sort of typical default ones in here, but we can change these as needed, that type of thing, right? Just basic sort of setup stuff on the administrative side. And then beyond that, in terms of actual training and getting people up and running, certainly we've got help, right? So if somebody's in the software, new user type of thing, and they're going, yeah, I know someone showed me how to process an RFI, but I forget what next. But what's the button I'm supposed to click next, right? You can always just go to the help section, and you could either watch a 45-second video that walks you through it. You could look at a set of screenshots and say, okay, first you click this, then you put in this information in that field, and then you click that button, and so on and so forth. So we've got that. We've got I think either weekly or biweekly webinars that cover various aspects of the software that just anyone can sign up with. And certainly, if it were a situation where you say, okay, well, say it's a 5-year project, right? And 2 years in, a whole bunch of new people come onto the team. You might say, oh, okay, well, it makes sense at this point that we just added 30 people to the team. They're brand new. We'd like to sit down and have sort of a formal training session with the folks from Newforma. That's always a service that we could provide for you as well. So it sort of depends on exactly what's the situation and all that. But the point is that one way or the other, we're going to make sure that you get up and running as quickly, as smoothly as possible. Taryn is your overall main point of contact. So we've got services and support and all that, certainly. But at any time you can always reach out to Taryn as well, and she'll help you with anything that you need, or help facilitate something, right?
Okay. In this configuration process we walked through when we first set up the project, I guess, obviously, right? Exactly.
Yep. And then you can always come in as an administrator, and if you need to change something at some point in the project, by all means, you have that ability. But yeah, it's typically done initially as part of setup.
Okay. And one question on the specifications, for example, that you're using here. These are all standard CSI cost coding that's in there. Do I have to load that for each job?
Yep. So we have a submittal register that it's sort of how all this gets in there, and we've got a spreadsheet that's formatted so that when that's already formatted so that when the spreadsheet gets imported into the software picks up all the right information and makes sense of it appropriately and all that. And so you've got two choices, right? You can either go through your specifications yourself and fill out the spreadsheet and then send the spreadsheet to us, and we'll make sure it gets into the software, or as a paid service, if you would rather have us do the administrative work of going through the specifications and pulling out those submittals and filling out the spreadsheet, you can pay us to do that as well. But one way or the other, It's just a matter of saying, yep, here's, the various spec sections for each of the submittals, and you put it into the spreadsheet, and then it gets uploaded in here.
And I can modify these, you said?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So like usually for most projects that we have, I go by my standard CSI cost coding, and I just kind of pick and choose which ones I need. And if for whatever reason, so like masonry, mortaring, and grouting is a different number in my system than yours, I can obviously change it on here. But also, like a lot of times, I'll just use that number because it's close enough, for what we're dealing with, depending on the item and how critical it is. So that looks handy, but also, in a larger, more complex project with a new engineer, I might have for whatever reason, they might have a completely funky specification cost code. So that I hear what you're saying. So what would the time period be like if I had some bizarre engineer from elsewhere that had his own system? Would it what kind of time frame would it take to have you do a full 30 division cost code installation? How much would that, how much are we talking about with that cost wise? Do you think that would run? I know.
Yeah. So the short answer is I don't know. I'm not involved in the group that actually does that work. The process for that is that you would sit down and have a call with one of the services team. They would scope out the work in terms of time and materials, and then they would work with you to put together a statement of work and figure out what that cost would be. And I think that it happens infrequently enough that right now they've kept it as a as needed service, as opposed to developing a sort of a standard set of call it brackets or options, if you will. So I don't know off the top of my head, but I can't imagine put it this way. We're a software company. We're not a services company, and so it's not an area of our business where we're looking to. I mean, we want it to be profitable in the sense that we don't want to lose money on services that we're providing as part of the total solution. But it's not an area of our business that we're looking to grow and really turn into a revenue stream. So it's if that gives you a sense of where we're coming from, without accidentally promising something incorrectly. That makes sense.
That's fine. I just you had mentioned it, so I was just curious if you knew it was some general rate. But it's not that critical. I mean, the vast majority of time, almost all the professional people I'm dealing with are on the full 33 division CSI nowadays, and the ones that don't use them at all, and so I can use my own typically on that. So one question on this. So what I would do generally with something like this, I'd need to insert additional cost code lines. I'm assuming that's simple enough.
Yeah, you just say add item to register, and it's just a matter of filling out the number, the title, and then you don't have to put any of this other information in here if you don't want to. You certainly could, but basically you fill out the number and the title, and you say save, and it'll just add a line in the database.
Yeah, put itself in numerically.
Yep.
In numerical order. Okay. And then I see on the right you got this handy chart with all the checks. Do you have to go into each window to get that up there? Or can you just hit the checks and bang away on the chart?
Yep. You just hit the checks.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay. And the pink items up at the top, the red, whatever that is, is that trade free? What is that section? I understand the blue, as to what we need for each of those individual sections. Is that the responsible design professional for review?
So these sections, so the color codes are just differentiating. If we go back here, so in the software, right, we've got 3 different fields, right, data fields in the database, right? So you've got trades, disciplines, categories, and type. And so the that's all that this is this. The pink is trade discipline, the green is category, and the blue is type. And the color coding is just simply differentiating the three different groups,
Right.
but these correspond directly to what is in the software. And in fact, when you're setting it up, right, when you're importing the submittal register initially, when you fill out that spreadsheet as far as here's the different types, here's the different categories, I mean, that's part of how you can fill those out. So
it's just a filter.
Yep, that's all it is.
So it's basically whatever. So whatever, underground pipe insulation and fill and stuff like that would all just be a civil type item. So it's just kind of relative. It doesn't direct it. This is not, or is it this the window, I guess, or the selection that would direct it to the certain submittals to the civil engineer as opposed to the electrical engineer, or is this just general categorization? Because obviously the cost coding covers categories for the most part.
Right. So it is. It's actually something a little bit different. So it does give you sort of the general categorization and sort of organization there, right? But what this piece of it lets you do is when somebody is going in and they're so I have admin permissions, so it looks, some of the things are slightly differently laid out, but basically, say I was a mechanical subcontractor, right? And I'm going to come in and say select number from register, and I'm going to say product requirements, right? And so it's going to number it, it's going to put in that title automatically. And then you'll notice down here under trade discipline, it said the electrical box is already checked. And so this is letting using that grid there with the checkboxes just lets you streamline the process for when someone's adding a submittal. You're front loading the work of saying, okay, this is what the submittal is going to be. This is how it's going to be categorized. And it's just removing, I mean, it's simple enough for someone to come in and say shop drawings, but that is a point where potentially some small amount of human error could get introduced. And so by using that grid system, you can actually set it up so that all someone needs to really do is say, yep, pick in the spec section, it automatically got numbered, it put in the right title, and boom, it put in the right categories and types and everything for me. And all I need to do is now just attach the appropriate documentation and send it to the next person in the process, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So you can make use of that if you'd like. You don't have to. It's there to give you the flexibility to do what you need to.
Okay.
To answer your question though, about how do we decide where it goes, we're going to jump out of the software and just talk about the workflow that's sort of built in real quickly. So high level, the whole point of the software is it's collaboration and communication platform for the team. And the idea is that, say there's 5 different groups of people that are going to have to review a submittal or an RFI, right? And if each one of those groups of people is using their own internal system, whether that's a software, whether it's email and Excel, whether it's an FTP site, whether it's, sticky notes, whatever, to keep track of things, if your system is different from my system, then even in a situation where there's the best of intentions, we've talked to people who say they go into an OAC meeting and the architect and the contractor are arguing about how long it took a submittal to get back, right? And the architect's saying, hey, we only took 3 days. Contractor says, no, you took 5. And they're really just arguing, are we counting the weekend as working days or not, right? So even in situations with the best of intentions, when people are working off different sets of data, there can be crossed wires all over the place. And the results of that can be anything from, simple delays all the way to litigation or, something breaking and people getting hurt or anything like that. And so we look at that entire situation and set of potential consequences, and we say it's just going to be a lot easier if everybody on the project just logs into one centrally located set of data, and then that way, if you go in and make a change, next time I look at it, we are all on the same page. We've got that peace of mind. I'm looking at the right information. It's up to date. We're all on the same page. everything's copacetic. And so that's the core goal and the core value that we're trying to provide. But at the same time, right, different people absolutely do have different roles on the project, and from a legal perspective, different sets of accountability and that sort of thing. So we still do want people interacting with the information appropriately. And so, especially with things like submittals and RFIs, we've got some workflow built into the software so that even though we're keeping people on the same page and it's the same set of information, you're still going to be interacting with it appropriately based on your role. And so you'll see that we've got these different, I think of them as slots in the process. And the important thing here is not necessarily what you call each point in the process or where someone is, right? This, for example, this diagram has the owner as sort of a more hands-off reviewer, right? But sometimes, somebody says, well, we are the owner, or it's an owner's rep, right? And they say, no, we want to be the person here at this point in the process who is both, quarterbacking submittals and RFIs out to the appropriate people, and then we want to absolutely be the gatekeeper to sign off on everything before it goes back to the construction team, for example. So it's not that you have to put the owner here. It's you can put someone anywhere in the slots, in any one of these slots, and you can call it whatever you want. The important thing here is that the relationships between each point in the process are set in stone. So if you add someone to the team as a subcontractor, they are never, ever, ever going to be, the electrical subcontractor is never going to be able to send something directly to the electrical engineer and get a reply. And even in that situation, even if the information is not incorrect, if they're the only two people in the world who knew that interaction took place, then that's an issue, right? So it's the relationships between the different points in the process that are set in stone. And so to your point, or your question about how do you control the electrical submittal going to the electrical engineer, you've got two options. First is that whoever you have at this point in the process, they're going to do the filtering of, wait, somebody put the wrong information in, didn't look too closely at the specs, whatever it is, right? And it's don't show me how the sausage is made, just send the right things over to whoever's doing the reviewing, so that they only have things on their plate that matters. By default, it's going to go to whoever is in this spot, and then they'll quarterback it out to the appropriate people. But we recognize that can sometimes be a bottleneck, right? If this person is traveling or sick or stuck in meetings all day, if here that, hey, it's an electrical submittal, it's going to Alex over here, everybody knows that, then you do have the option to turn on an auto forward so that when you send it on, this person is still going to see it. They're going to get notified that, hey, an electrical submittal has come in, but you also have the ability to say, hey, Alex, electrical engineer, here's something for you to start working on, and this person can get working on it, even if it takes 6 hours for this person to get out of a meeting. But that's all controlled in the software itself. So if we go back here, I'm in this environment, I'm logged in as someone who's in this role, and we do not have the optional auto forward turned on. And so when wrong window. When it says, hey, who are you sending this to as the next point in the process, you'll see it, even though we have like 50 people on the project team, it's only letting me choose 4. And these people explicitly are they're the only ones in this role. So that's how we control, who a submittal goes to, or an RFI.
Okay, and this is all malleable at the setup stage. Exactly,
and even throughout the course of the project, if you realize, hey, we need to put someone in a different role, or we need to add a new person, whoever has those administrative rights just goes in to that project team section, and it's literally just a matter of saying, there's just a drop-down menu, right? And it's just a matter of saying, oops, we're going to move this person from here to this other role.
Gotcha. Or if we decide we want to cut somebody out.
Yeah, you just, literally just click the trash can and remove them from the project, and that's it, they're out.
Got it.
Yeah. So,
And that's all generally setup function that Taryn would walk us through, or do we like talk about it and then she sets it up and then we access it, or
it wouldn't, yeah, it wouldn't be Taryn doing the actual setup. It would be someone from our services organization. But yeah, you would talk about it with the appropriate person from whoever the point of contact is from our services organization. You talk about it first. They would make sure, yep, we know what you want us to set up for you. They'd set it up at the beginning of the project, and then you would manage it moving forward. But if you ever had any questions, by all means, reach out to Taryn. Hey, we've got a question. Could we talk to someone from the services organization? We wanted to change something. We weren't sure what the best way to do it was, for example.
okay?
Yeah. So I just want to be cognizant of the time. I know we had 30 minutes on the calendar here, and I know we're about to bump up into that. So just to show you a couple things really quickly. So like I said, I'm someone logged in that contractor slot, so I can see by default the draft submittals. This is only viewable by someone on the construction team. This open submittal log, viewable, this is gonna look literally the same regardless of who you are on the project, just as long as you have permissions to look at submittals. So the numbering is the same, title, due dates, all that stuff, status, as well as you'll notice, this is red, means it's overdue. And we've got this little circle here on the left-hand side, and basically the more filled in the circle is, the further along through the review process it is. So at a glance, right, this is just trying to give everybody a little bit of visibility and understanding into what's going on, so we can see at a glance, okay, this submittal is overdue. Well, it's not overdue, it's overdue because it's still stuck with one of the engineers, right? And so, okay, we've got a question about this, and so we would go in, we can, now we're seeing all the information about that particular submittal, attachments, and so on, and we would go down and we would say, look at the transmittal history here, and we're going to see that, oh, Daryl, our electrical engineer, has still, under the returned column, it still says open. So we can see that this is who we're waiting on, and then we just mouse over his name, and his contact information is going to be there. And now it's, it's very easy to realize and figure out, okay, I got to pick up the phone, I got to send Daryl an email, but you can very easily stay on top of what's going on. And then when people do make their comments, they'll show up that, it's all right here. We've got some built-in markup tools as well, but it's all meant to just streamline the process, make it as easy as possible for someone to go in and see what's going on. And then at the end of the day, when you're ready to close out the project and archive it, we also provide you with an archive of read-only documentation. And there's two parts to that, which is we're going to give you the actual files. So if you ever needed to produce those in a dispute or something like that, you do have the file. But rather than giving you a bunch of, potentially like tens of thousands of files, right? And if you ever needed one of them, you're in like okay, needle in a haystack. Do I click through each and every file to find what I need? That's kind of a pain. We also have this nicely formatted HTML formatted index for you that you can open up. And this is, it's HTML, so it opens up in a browser, but they're all files that just, you put them on your network, whatever you do with archived files, and it looks just like this, right? It's very similar in layout and accessibility to the live software. And you would just come in and you would say submittals, and it's an easily understandable list. Go to the appropriate one, and maybe you're just saying, okay, it's 5 years down the road. We've got a question about, a door broke and we need to replace it. What was the original submittal? Or it could be, hey, there's a dispute. We need to find something. Whatever it might be, though, there's all that basic information about the submittal. Here's the document. It's going to have all those markups on it. And then down at the bottom, here's the review history with all those comments from everybody. And it's all just right there in one place. And you can print it out if you need it. All that good stuff.
And it'll have all the original attachments?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you needed that attachment, you just click on it, and here is the, that original submittal, the actual documentation that was associated with it, all right here for you. And any markups that were on it would be there as well.
And could you? I don't know. We're fine on time. I don't know how you guys are, but
I can go for a few more minutes. Yeah.
like, could you just walk us through the similar view through the RFI? I have my couple of main questions. Mainly, just like wanted to look through the RFI thing real quick. And I see you've got a window for field reports, and also the other question was with project documents. So if we have the whatever current set of plans and specifications, can we upload those and maintain them here on the site for people to access?
Absolutely. So RFIs are going to be very easy because they work. The software handles them literally exactly the same way as submittals, right? We've got the drafts, we've got the open. You can see, same layout here, the same little circles that tell you where in the process it is. You've got your logs and your categories and trades and disciplines over here. And then if you go into an RFI, slightly, I mean, it's a different thing, right? So you've got your question here
Right.
as opposed to it's a submittal. But same thing, attachments and spot for answers. And you can, if you have other information, that's in the system, right? You can say, oh, right, this is a question about standpipe conflict at, the shower, and that's on A201 is the drawing it happens to be on, and so we can see that connection there. So RFIs and submittals work exactly the same. As far as managing the drawings go, think of this as an electronic version of a filing cabinet, right? And the idea is that as a team, if we weren't using this system, if we just had that filing cabinet, we would say, look, if you want an official version of a drawing, it's not that thing attached to the email that Alex sent out. It's not the thing that Taryn has printed out on her desk. You go to the filing cabinet, you open it up, there's going to be a folder for every drawing. You open up the appropriate folder, and now you're going to see every official version of that drawing that's been put in there over the course of the project. And this is just an electronic version of that. So each one of these records is the equivalent of a folder inside the filing cabinet. You open up the quote-unquote folder. You've got all the information about that particular drawing. Right off the bat at the top, you've got the most recent version. You've got where it came from. And if you needed to look at the history, here's every version of A201 that's been put into the software over the course of the project. So you can do this in-depth look on an individual basis, or someone could come onto the project and say, I need a current set of drawings. They go to the sheet index, and rather than having someone put that together, they just come in and say, download current set. As of today's date, it'll give you this is the equivalent of opening all of the quote-unquote folders and pulling out the most recent version. And you could do it by default by today's date. If for some reason you needed to go back and take a historical look, it'll give you the most recent version as of whatever date you put in there. And you just select the ones you need, click download, and you're all set.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful. So my one question about that, though, as far as uploading those files, like what format does that go in? So if the engineer sends me, sometimes they'll send us a PDF with, 50 pages in the PDF, and sometimes we'll get DWG drawings. Sometimes, most of our guys are in Revit now. How does it get uploaded into this, and how does it get sorted by page?
Yep. So the format is going to be the file format is going to be one of these 6 file formats that gets updated, and each attachment has a maximum file size here, and so you're not going to upload one PDF with 50 pages. The software can't break those up. So what we recommend is often having a conversation with whoever you're working with, and just saying, hey, look, when you're exporting, you're publishing your sheets out of Revit, could you go into Revit and choose the setting that instead of exporting it as one PDF with 50 pages, it just exports it as 50 individual PDFs, one for each page. And then if you're okay with it, rather than sending you the files and you have to then go in and upload them, and I'll show you how it works in just a second, you could actually tell that person, hey, you go in, you upload them, save it as a draft, and then send me a note and say, hey, go look at these, make sure they're okay, and when you're ready to say, yep, this is officially okay, and we're going to click the button, you would say, okay, here's the users on the project team that we're going to notify of the new drawings there. And then once you're okay with that, you hit issue, and that saves all of those new, for each record that got updated, it's going to update what's the new most recent version. And the way that it does that is when you choose a PDF, or, well, when you choose a file, it scans the file name, and I want to be really clear, it's scanning the file name itself. It's not going and looking inside and looking at the title block.
Right.
And what it does is over here you'll see it says no link to index. So it scanned the file name, and then it looked at the sheet index, and it looked at every file in there. And if it had found a match, it would ask us, hey, this file here, there's already one over in the index. Is this supposed to be the new, most recent version of that particular file? And you just sort of go down the list, you double check. It can get false positives every once in a while. Like say if you have a file name that has maybe there's a word that ends in A, and it's got the date February 1st right in there, and so the file, the letters and numbers might literally say A201. But it's not actually supposed to be A201, the sheet. It's just a coincidence. So we always, it's not quite perfect. We always recommend double checking. But if you needed to override something, you could say, no, this wasn't named properly. It's supposed to be the new most recent version. But whether or not you want to say to that engineer, send it to us, we'll do this process, or hey, you do the bulk of the work, and then we'll just double check it and approve it. Either whatever works best for you, we give you that flexibility. And the specifications, so we've got a sheet index, and then we've got a specification index. And in the same way that RFIs worked exactly the same way as submittals, the specification index works the same way as the sheet index. And it just gives you that ability to say, yep, I need, here's the specs, I need to go reference it, and, there it is.
But they have to be individual PDFs and not one spec book.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. And if so, a lot of times what I'll get is whatever A201 from an architect. It'll be A201, and in his system it'll date it, right? So it says A201 January 1st, 2017. And I'll get the next issue. It'll say A201 February 2017. It won't match that as a file, I assume. It'll think it's something else.
Nope, it'll look and it'll see the A201, and it'll pick up on the A201 in the file name and the A201 that's already in the index. And okay. Yeah, chances are very good that that it'll pick up on that. There might occasionally be an issue where it might think that there's two, you might have two sets of letters and numbers that could potentially be two, matches for two different sheets. It might, goof there and pick up on the wrong set of letters and numbers. But that's, we're talking about like 1 or 2% of the time.
Yeah. So this is probably, it sounds to me like this is the trickiest section to insert information.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, it's
obviously depending on, especially if I'm dealing with an MEP engineer, a structural engineer, an architect, a landscape, civil. I got everybody sending me stuff in different formats. This looks like it could be the trickiest area to insert information.
Yep, I would say that's accurate, and I would. And I would say that our intent, right, is, the reason that there's the option to say, hey, I either want to control this process myself, or even if you're helping out with some of the administrative effort of getting this in here, we still want me to be the final reviewer. It's all intended to be, call it. Subservient to your discretion and judgment as a professional and as that person who has whatever legal responsibility and accountability. So we don't want to ever accidentally put you, over automate something and then put you in a situation where, whoops, the wrong thing got put up there and, it wasn't necessarily your fault, but you might still get held accountable for it, right? We would never want to put you in that situation. So.
Yeah, these kind of things that get lost in translation.
Exactly.
Okay, and then my other question is with field connectivity. So Travis is out in the field running the real world, and I'm in here playing with the computer. We generally have Wi-Fi and all on our sites, and so we have good connectivity from that standpoint. So I assume he can go in, sign in like any other external access point and stay on top of any of this information that he needs at any given time.
Yep, exactly. And so we've got, so this is my iPad here. We've got a few mobile apps. They're very, very straightforward. So Project Teams is just about having contact information at your fingertips, organized by the project that they're working on. So instead of being like, okay, I gotta go find an old email for find their signature block to get this person's phone number, you just have that right there. Same thing with capturing tasks. That's very much meant to be, hey, I'm out in the field, maybe I'm talking to so and so, and they something comes up and I don't want to I want to make a task and not lose track of it. Great, super easy to just put in a couple pieces of information. You could even dictate that to this so that you don't have to type as you're walking around site. You could take a photo, you could put a quick markup on there for additional clarification, and have it just sync back to the software. The tasks app does the opposite. It says, okay, on this project, here is the list of items, and you can go in, you can edit the status of any of them, see all that information. You can create a quick report, just as a PDF if you needed it. It's just about giving you an easy way to say, hey, this is what I need to stay on top of. Here's what's going on. Here's the moving parts. And plans, same thing. This syncs back to the sheet index. So this is just about having access to the latest version of a particular plan out in the field. You download it, that little blue download arrow. You can either download an individual sheet if you only need that, or you can download all of them. And then you just say, yep, here we go. Even if you're in a basement and you don't have great connectivity, you can still zoom in, you can mark it up, you can drop a pin, you can create an item. Same thing, right? It's just about saying, I'm out and about, how do I have access to the information that is principally managed, from the office, right? And last but not least, so we have a field reports app and we have a field reports activity center. And at the moment, they're not connected. The reason is that they got developed at different times, and initially the activity center, from the project management view of the world, right, sort of that higher level up, this is not about generating field reports. It's about keeping all of the project's information together in one spot so that anybody on the team who needs access to it has an easy way to just go get it and say, oh yeah, show me a soil, all the soil composition reports, and oh yeah, I needed to go reference something on this one. Here it is, and we've just attached the field report that got generated. And whatever, initially it was whatever way you were generating a field report, keep doing it that way, save it as a PDF, and then just put it in the filing cabinet, so to speak. What we have now as an intermediate step is we went out and we talked to a bunch of customers, right? Because people said, hey, well, that's nice, but it would be so much better if you had a way for us to easily generate the field report as well. And so we got a whole bunch of feedback from folks, and that's typically the way we want to, we don't want to just be, random vendor XYZ. We want to be a partner with you. We want to make sure that, our business is helping your business be either more successful or making things easier or whatever it might be. And so we got a lot of feedback. We put together this app, and it's really just a matter of saying, okay, here's when I got on site. Let me put in the right time, And, as you're going through your day, you're just saying, yeah, here's the people and equipment that are here. Here's the weather. Here's some pictures. And when you hit the little PDF button at the end of the day, it generates this nice looking report that's just got all this stuff right here for you. And, you didn't have to spend half an hour or an hour at the end of the day, putting together this big clunky thing. You just sort of put it together in 20-second bits and pieces over the course of the day. And right now they're separate, right? So you still have to, you hit the PDF button, email it to yourself and upload it and go through the put it in the filing cabinet. The reason that at the moment they don't directionally, at some point they're going to sync, you're going to hit the button and it's just going to sync back to the software. The reason it's not there right now is that when we looked at our development priorities over, the next however long, what we realized was that there's a lot, this was a quick and easy thing to sort of put together once we got the feedback, right? And what we realized was that we had two choices. We could either release it as is right now, and people could probably get a lot of value out of it, for the moment, and then still, just as a standalone sort of field report generating tool. And then at some point in the future, we would increase the value that people were getting out of it by having it just sync directly. Or we could wait, and people wouldn't be able to get any value out of it right now, but we didn't know when we'd actually be able to sync it, because in terms of development priorities, that was way down on the list compared to other stuff. And so we decided to say, hey, we've got this, it's ready, it's good enough, it's going to add some value to some people's lives, let's put it out there and let folks use it, and then we'll continue to make it better as we can. So that's sort of just so you understand kind of our approach and our thinking, and why it is the way it is at the moment, as well as sort of directionally where we're headed.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, so out in the field, Travis does whatever, a week's worth of these, and they're basically resident on his iPad how does it? So it doesn't automatically upload and go into the system?
Yeah, he would just email the PDF to himself. It's probably the easiest way to do it.
But could you create like a week's worth on your iPad, say, and then email them in blocks or whatever? Because it's one of these things we don't want to make it. We're not trying to make the world a daily computer chore, Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I want to say yes, but I don't think anyone's ever actually asked me that question before. So let me just double check with one of my colleagues, and we'll get you that answer definitively.
Yeah. No, I was just curious if it was a simple way to do it, but yeah. Okay. So obviously this could be utilized as your daily safety report, along with everything else, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then if we wanted to have a specific safety report daily or weekly or whatever, for whatever reason, we could just, that could be, I guess you could do multiple files in a day just the same as you could do one, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
It's segregated that way. Okay, and then on one of your prior windows, I saw it had a listing of CSI divisions, but you had 1 through 16. Is your standard setup a 16 division format or the 33 division format?
It's on a per project basis. It's whatever you put in there. So.
Well, like I know you had your standard set of specification sections, and they would. I'm just curious if you could, I guess, go back to that real quick. We could look at it, because most of us are on the bigger version nowadays. So, like, I guess if you just scroll down for a bit, because this is what is on the program basically as a template, right?
Yep. So what we can do for you, right, is if whichever one you're using regularly. So say the first time you spin up project number 1, right, and you're going to go through the initial process of saying, yep, we're filling out that spreadsheet I mentioned to you. It's got, the specification sections that we need in here, and you send it to us, and we upload it for you, right? And then maybe 3 months later, you say, hey, we're spinning up project number 2, and it's still going to use the 33 division set of specs, and we could you could say, hey, we just want to use that as the template for our normal stuff, and we could go back and just, when we spin up that project, just have that be in there. If you then turned around for project 3 and said, hey, this one is an exception to that, and we're going to be using, for whatever reason, the 16 section set of specs, then you would go through the process of filling out the spreadsheet again, and having it up there. But basically, once it's in there, we could essentially, you could just tell us, hey, we want a project that has the same, this is project 4, and we want it to start up with the same spec sections as project 1. And we could make that happen. And then if you needed to make a tweak, a small tweak or change to that particular project, just come in here and make that change.
Yeah, no, I totally get the flexibility of the situation. Just on one of the other windows, it showed the 16 division instead, so I didn't know you had like a full template for each one.
Was
just
it this one?
work is changing from one to the other is kind of a lot of busy work, because like electrical, all the electrical stuff moves, all the mechanical stuff moves. You know what I mean? So if it's if you have a base 16 division template and a base 30 division template, then you'll see on the right there where you've got the 16. Mm-hmm. So that's all I was asking. Is just if I could just pull up whatever base. I'm fine with customizing.
Yeah.
But to customize from one of those to the other, it is obviously pretty laborious. So
right.
If you
So
get
the
base template for each, then that makes it easy.
Yeah. So the reason this one has 16 is because when this project was set up, that was the set of information that got put in there. And so this would just work the same way I outlined for the submittals, right? You could say, okay, normally go through the process once, and then normally our projects are going to be the 30 divisions, and then for new projects we could just copy that, versus. But it's, this came, this was again just set up under module configuration, essentially, right? So if you needed, as long as you have a project that has the bigger division set and a project that has the 16 division set, then we can essentially just copy the list from one project to a new project.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. We'll always have some subtle difference, but that's manageable with the edit format or the edit function. Okay, and then so what is the usual setup time? So if I call you up and say, okay, I've got a project X, and you send me the forms to fill out, I send it back to you. What's like? How long does it take to get us up and online with that stuff?
It would typically say, a couple business days. It's obviously there. We might have just gotten 50 requests, right, from people, and that would obviously slow us down a little bit. Or there might be some really wonky set of stuff that's unique to this project that requires a lot more effort. But in general, it's just a matter of saying, okay, this is the information we want in there. We're flipping the switch on the back end, turning it on, and then just configuring it as needed for that project. It's a very straightforward process on our end.
Okay. And then on the cost side, I understand from Taryn that this is a volume-driven cost function as far as the price per project for each of these setups and actually the use of the program.
Yep, absolutely. So we have 2 options. We have a single project purchase, and we also have multi-project purchasing as well. And that's all based on the overall cost of the construction value of the project.
Okay. And what's the difference, or is there a difference or benefit or package price between the single and the multi?
Absolutely. So multi-project pricing is usually going to be more beneficial to you in the long run. So say you have, on average in a year, you complete like a $50 million amount of projects. If you were to purchase those separately, overall those are going to add up over time. But if you were to just buy, the $50 million package, which would be $18,000, you pay that one time and you have 12 months to start each of those projects. So you can say, we're going to be purchasing a $50 million package. You have, again, just 1 year from the time of purchase to spin up those projects.
To get them started, and then, like you said, that this runs with the life of the project?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay. And so let me give you a reasonable example of what we're looking at this coming year. We have one project that is going to be in the 10 million range, so probably, for ease of math, let's call it 10 million. And then we have probably 2 additional smaller projects that would be about $1 million each.
Okay.
So in that kind of configuration, would we do the multi-user? I mean, the multi-version sense, or how does that?
Yeah.
Would you recommend?
Yeah. Let me give you an example. So, say if you were to purchase these projects separately. So for a $10 million project, you are looking at about $7,000. So you would, apply that $7,000 towards the $10 million package. Each of those $1 million projects are going to be about $2,500 each project. But if we were to say, okay, you have $10 million and then let's just call it 12 for the sake of math, you're looking at spending only about $8,500 for all 3 projects.
Gotcha. So it does make sense.
Yeah. So the multi-project pricing definitely does benefit over just purchasing them singly.
Yeah, because that makes the so it makes the $1 million jobs about $750 a piece. So even if it's not, it would be an underutilized program for those, but still have some applicable value. And
absolutely.
Probably in that price range, it makes a lot more sense, for the amount of benefit that we get from it.
Yep.
Okay. Travis, do you have any other questions? Pretty straightforward as far as that goes. Okay, and God, did I have another? Are there any other tracking functions that we didn't talk about? We had RFI submittals, documents, correspondence, effectively. All the correspondence that this will obviously track is just related directly to RFI submittals and that kind of thing. It's not going to pick up day-to-day email communication or everything. Like, we don't use this as a central communication point or an email address, effectively, right?
Yeah, so it's not going to integrate with email at all, but in the sense that we're trying to, if we go all the way back out to that big picture of, we want one central location for project information, email is something that has sort of, in general, gotten out of control, right? And so we do have a built-in messaging ability here. And the idea is that rather than having multiple copies of emails and people replying to different parts of the thread in the conversation, why not just start, send out a message to the project team, have that be here in the software, right? Again, centrally located, one message, and then if you have comments, right? Anyone who's added to this, right? You can see here, whatever the other pieces of relevant project information are, and then anyone who makes a comment, all of the comments that get made will be contained within the context of this one conversation, and it'll all be in, together with the rest of the software or the rest of the project information in one place. And as much as possible, we hope that this helps get people, out from under the mountain of the inbox, right? And so when the message goes out, you would just get a notification, hey, new message from Project XYZ. Click the link, go into the software. Here's the message. Here's everything that people have said.
Okay.
So you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but it's available, you know, as needed.
Okay, so you kind of keep miscellaneous things in there.
Yep.
All right. I think that covers it for my end for the moment. Traps is good. We're good. Anything else you can think of that we might need to know?
No, I think we hit the highlights, and certainly where people get the most value, right? It's fundamentally about having everybody be on the same page, looking at the same set of information, and then as it applies to those different areas that we looked at, I mean, submittals and RFIs are about controlling that process and making sure that everybody knows what's going on and where in process something is, and has the same expectations about when things are supposed to be back and all that. Same thing with managing drawings, right? It's all about just making sure that everybody's working off the right set of information. With the field apps, it's about saying, okay, I'm out and about. How do I, get information to and from the office quickly and easily? And with that archive, it's about just saying, right, you spent the entire project putting a bunch of information in here, rather than putting that burden on you to go put together archive documentation. Why don't we just wrap it up nice, pretty, and put a bow on it for you? So.
No, it's nice. I've used it before. We used it on a project we did a couple of years ago with an architect, with a very disparate out-of-town team, and it was very effective as far as keeping this track of all this stuff. And I did see on one of the tabs you had like a meeting minutes thing. It looked like there you go.
It's the same thing as the field reports tab. It's very much not a meeting minutes generation tool. It's a filing cabinet to keep it all together with the rest of the project information.
Okay, so take notes on whatever else and upload the PDF.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, and that could be a scanned PDF or a direct typed in PDF or whatever.
Yep. I mean, you're just at the end of the day, you're just attaching the PDF to the record, right?
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that covers it from my end.
Perfect.
Awesome. So what would you like the next steps to be, Crockett? What I'm going to do is I'm going to send over the recording of the demo, and then would you like me to touch base with you next week?
Yeah, that'd be fine. What I'm trying to do right now, for our main project this coming spring here, my architect team is in New York City, and they use new format Exchange, but the project architect that I'm dealing with doesn't know how they utilize new format or not. They've just, as far as I can tell, they're just using it as like a Dropbox for plans right now. They just use it to send plans to me. And this particular project architect that I'm working with from the firm isn't sure how their whole thing is set up and if they have capacity or not. So I want to find out and get it all queued up, because I'm insisting on using it, or some form of control software for this project. It's a complicated theater project, and I've got people all over the place. So I've got to resolve that with them as to who's going to be centering all this information.
So to that point, just to give you the high-level picture, just some context, they're using a fundamentally different software, and it is where this is intended and designed to be most effective as a communication and collaboration tool for the entire project team. The software they're using is internally focused, and it does have that external point of contact, but that is in there not as an afterthought, but as a call it recognition that in our industry, by definition, you work with other people, and you need a way to interact with them on some level. But it's very much the analogy I like to make is the software they're using is the bank, and the external point of contact is the ATM, right? It's just that piece of the system where external folks are going to go to make their deposits and withdrawals of information into their system. But the software they're using is internally focused. It's about It's about giving them visibility into the moving parts of their projects across their business internally. And frankly, from the software's point of view, it doesn't particularly care about anybody else on the project team. It's not trying to address any of those types of challenges. And so what we do, or what we recommend, so right now the two softwares don't talk to each other. What we're looking at actually used to be a different company. We acquired them back in August of 2012. So, we talked about the reason why our Field Reports app doesn't connect to this software, and it's because our highest development priority at the moment is making these two softwares talk to each other nice and easily. At the moment, they don't, and so what we often recommend is that even though the architect has, quote unquote, has new forma, treat it as if they don't, right? Just think about it as they have some set of internal systems that they're using to run their business, and it's not particularly germane to the question of how are we going to keep the entire project team on the same page as far as managing the RFI and submittal process. And so what we do is we say, get them to put do their RFI and submittal management here together with the rest of the team in the Project Cloud software, and then when you get that archive at the end of the project, you can give them a copy and they can take that, save it on their network, put it into their internal Newforma software and have their record of stuff. We've done it before. It typically works fairly well. It's just a matter of them acknowledging that it's about using the right tool for the right job. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of my feeling, was that they were using it for design collaboration and not for construction management.
Yep.
So that's I just need confirmation from them, and then once I know for sure that we're not being duplicative, then I want to get it. Then I'll probably get it set up.
Yep. And if they've got questions or anything like that, I mean, this is a conversation that we've had in this exact situation plenty of times before, and we're perfectly comfortable explaining that. And so if you'd like us to help with that, or if they've got a question that you're not quite sure about the answer to, we're happy to help facilitate that conversation as well.
Okay. No, I appreciate that.
Yep.
All right. I think that covers it for me then.
Great. All right, great.
All right. Thanks very much for the demonstration.
You're welcome. I'll follow up with you sometime next week. Okay, Crockett. Have a great weekend.
Yep, you too. Thanks.
Thanks, Travis. Thanks, Alex.
You're welcome. Have a nice weekend, everyone.